Hello, fellow marketers. Welcome to another episode of Directive R&D. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, Amy Elmayan, one of our senior SEO account strategists at Directive. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So today's topic's all about technical SEO. Sounds boring, but we'll try to make it as fun as possible. And the world of SEO is always changing. A lot of major updates in recent months. So I brought in Amy, one of our in-house experts here, to kind of break down what are the top technical SEO factors to consider in 2021 right now. So I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to walk through a few, not all the factors because there's too many to count, but a few major ones that you need to pay attention to make sure you have a good foundation for your website to be discovered in the SERPs. So I'm going to share my screen here. All right. So Amy, going to kick it off to you. So what is Core Web Vitals? I also see this acronym floating around CWV. What is this and why is it so important for SEOs to pay attention to?
Yeah, great question. So Core Web Vitals is a newer report found in Google Search Console, and it basically evaluates how fast your site is. It scores on 3 individual metrics. It's basically how quickly your site loads, how long it takes for the biggest element to finish loading, and how long it takes before all the elements are fully interactive and ready to be clicked on. And Core Web Vitals is really important because Google has announced that in May of this year, this is going to become part of an official ranking factor. So this is something that SEOs need to address now to be prepared to make sure that they don't experience any negative impact when that update rolls out.
Wow, that's good to know. So inside Google Search Console, does Google give you any like tips or does it just alert you that one of these 3 criteria aren't up to par?
Yeah, good question. So they evaluate you on different kind of measurements in terms of seconds. They'll let you know if you're good, kind of okay, or poor. There's usually not immediate direction on how to fix it, but in general, if you use site speed tools like PageSpeed Insights, Lighthouse, or GTmetrix, all of those give suggestions on how to improve your overall page speed experience.
Got it. Great. That's great insight. Can't wait to dive into that. The next point around schema implementation, I know schema is like, there's a bunch of different types of schema, but can you tell me a little bit more about why that's a big factor and why technical or SEOs should consider it?
Yeah, so schema is structured data that you can put on a page, and it basically helps Google better understand the context of the page. And often this schema results in rich snippets in the search results. One of my favorite kinds of schema is FAQ schema. Mm-hmm. So if you have an FAQ page or a product or services page that has an FAQ section, if you mark it up with FAQ schema, what is likely going to happen is in the search results, you'll get this nice accordion with the question. When you expand it, you'll see the answer. And it's nice because you get to take up more real estate in Google search results.
Yeah, that makes sense. I see that all the time. And I bet a lot of people wonder, how do they get in those? But is there a way for website owners or webmasters to understand like where they can implement schema or are there different types of schema?
Yeah, there are all different types of schema. If you go to schema.org, you can search through all the different available types. You can combine multiple types of schema on a page where it makes sense. There's all different kinds of options out there. Got
it. Cool. Next point around site architecture. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? It's kind of a broader concept, but yeah.
Yeah, site architecture is basically how your site is organized. So if you have products and services, your URL structure might be something like /products/name of product. If you have a blog post, they might all live under /blog. And the way that your site is organized from an overall architecture perspective, it makes a difference in how users navigate your site, how Google navigates your site, and how it associates similar content. So for example, if you have a resources section and you nest all of that content under /resources, Google understands all of that content is related to your overall resources section.
Got it. That makes sense. So it's always important to make sure it's well organized for the crawlers as well as users, right? To navigate the site properly. Yeah,
crawlers and users. And I would say one other added benefit too is when you're trying to perform data analysis in Google Analytics or a similar tool, it's really helpful to be able to see overall how your products perform if you have everything nested under /products versus having everything live directly off of the homepage. It can be a little bit more tricky to perform analysis at scale.
Makes sense. Let's jump to the fourth one around broken links. Kind of self-explanatory, but can you tell us why broken links are so important for technical SEO?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, nobody likes a broken link, right? You
Right.
click on it, you're taken to this broken page. Not a great user experience. Strictly speaking from Google, as Google crawls your site and indexes it, they follow all the different links, and that's how Google understands what pages of your site are available to show up in search results. If it comes across a broken link, Google doesn't like that. They're going to stop crawling and they're going to go away from your site. And that's what you don't want. You want Google to keep crawling your site, keep indexing new pages as you add them.
Got it. That makes sense. So are there places where webmasters can check on broken links?
Yep, absolutely. There's different crawl tools out there you can use. Screaming Frog is one of my favorites. You can run a crawl and you can sort by response codes. 404 is the typical broken link response code. And you can see where those broken links are coming from, and you can go in and fix them. And often, I've seen sites before where sometimes if a URL changes and they don't implement a redirect, you could end up with a CTA that goes to a broken page, and that ends up being a lost conversion opportunity.
Got it. Yep, that's an always helpful thing to double check. Last point around robots text rules. So can you explain that that factor a little bit more?
Yeah, so a robots.txt file is something that every website should have. It basically contains rules telling Google which pages of the site you want them to crawl versus which pages you want to avoid. In smaller sites, this may not be a big of a deal, but if you have a very large website, you want to make sure you focus Google on crawling the most important pages. So some common types of things you want to block with robots.txt is if, for example, you're a SaaS product and you have a login page and there's certain content that can only be accessible after a user logs in. That is the type of content you would want to block via robots.txt. It wouldn't make sense for a user to click on it via search results and then not be able to access it. Another thing too is if you have a site search feature, you want to block the internal search results from showing up in Google. Again, we want Google to show actual pages of the site and not really category pages or search results pages. That's
helpful to know. Yeah, for sure. So thanks for going over those 5 factors. I know there are a lot more, but I'm going to jump out here and just chat with you only. So a common question I get asked is like, how often do webmasters and like web owners have to check on these factors? Is it like a one-time thing when you're doing major website updates, or is it more so a consistent, check on and quality check on these different factors and other factors?
Yeah, great question. So definitely, if you're going through a major site update, site migration, you definitely want to spend more time focused on technical SEO factors. But it's also important just from a regular maintenance perspective. With some tools out there like SEMrush's audit tool, you can schedule regular crawls once a week. And so that way you can kind of catch things and clean them up as you go.
That's cool to know. Are there any like, favorite, I know you mentioned Screaming Frog, but favorite other technical SEO tools you have either to like diagnose and identify or even like remedy? Are there any tools that you'd recommend?
Yeah, Screaming Frog. Deep Crawl is another one that's really interesting because you can compare crawls and kind of see what's changed in between. And there's also just a variety. If you want to implement schema on your site, there's a variety. If you just research it, of free schema generation tools that can be really helpful. Cool.
Well, that was super helpful to review those and stay up to date with the latest trends in technical SEO. So thank you so much for joining the show. As always, if you have any questions, please let us know in the comments. And yeah, thank you again, Amy.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.